Hail, fellow travelers. Tim from Secret Fire Books here with another video. This time, it's my top 10 favorite book covers. But before I get into any of that, I do have a bit of book mail that I need to talk about. A viewer actually sent me some stuff recently. A viewer by the name of Glockensig. You guys may know him. He comments on these videos pretty frequently. And I actually met him in person at Pulp Fest in August. He's a very, very kind, friendly gentleman. He emailed me a few days ago and asked if he could send me some stuff, and I took him up on that offer. He sent me two books. The first of them is The Complete Cases of McBride and Kennedy by Frederick Nebel. This is a big old collection of hard-boiled detective stories that were originally published in Black Mask magazine, one of the most popular magazines of the pulp era. And that's awesome because I've wanted to get into more hard-boiled fiction lately, so that's super cool. And the other thing he sent me was, I didn't even know that these existed. This is a Penguin Speculative Fiction Special. It's a nice little hardcover bind-up of The Vampire by John Polidori and Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. Now, Carmilla is a book that I just read at the beginning of the month, and I enjoyed it. It was a good book. I didn't think it was nearly as great as certain people have hyped it up to be, but it was good. It was a fun gothic horror novel. But The Vampire, I was really interested in. This story was written by John Polidori, who was an acquaintance of Mary Shelley of Frankenstein fame. And in fact, as the subject matter of Glockensig's email detailed, this story was written, it was inspired by the same events that inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein. So I thought that was very interesting. So when I get around to reading Frankenstein, finally, I might need to read The Vampire by John Polidori as well. And this little penguin hardcover is awesome. So you got Carmilla on the front there. And then on the back we have, I'm assuming, the titular vampire from The Vampire. So those books are very cool. Thank you once again to Glockensig. You did not have to send those to me, but you did anyway because you're just so awesome. And as such, I am dedicating the rest of this video to you, sir. I hope you don't disagree horribly with my selections and my taste in cover art. Okay, so I've wanted to make a top 10 list of my favorite book covers for a while now. And sometime back in October, Grammaticus Books gave me the perfect excuse to do so when he made his own top 10 list and challenged other people to make their own list using the same stipulations that he used for his video. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to link his original video in the description, by the way, and I'll challenge anyone else who's watching this video who has their own YouTube channel to give it a shot as well. But I'm going to be using the same stipulations that Grammaticus used in his top 10 list. And those are, 1, you can't double up on artists. So I can't use multiple covers by the same artist. So if I could, I would probably front load this list with Frank Frazetta's and Michael Whalen's and Boris Vallejo's and that kind of stuff. So that's not going to be happening. Number 2, I can only use cover art that I have in my personal collection. So even though I love Jack Gaughan's version of The Return of the King, I can't use that cover because I don't have that actual book in my collection. So I've compiled 10 books from my collection that fit those stipulations, and I'm actually going to start off with an honorable mention, or dishonorable, as the case may be, because it's not necessarily a cover that I like, but it is something that I've grown very fond of just because it kind of symbolizes the friendships that I've made here on YouTube over the past year and a half or so. So the first book I want to talk about on this list, my one and only honorable mention, is Bumcider by C.C. McCapp. That's right, Bumcider rears its ugly head once again. As I said, I don't actually like this cover. It's kind of offensive to my eyes, but just that ridiculous-looking image is seared into my brain. And we reviewed this book on our first live stream for the Elusive Exclusive Book Society. Not the first episode, but the first live stream that we ever did. We covered Bumcider, and yeah, the book was pretty boring, but that image is just, it's become a symbol of the friendships that I've made here in our little corner of the internet. And for that reason, I love it. Now, the thing is, I've never been able to find out who did this cover painting. I've done a little bit of research and I couldn't find any concrete evidence as to who painted it, but judging from a few random forum posts I was able to find, it seems like the culprit was Josh Kirby. And I found that kind of amazing because, yes, Josh Kirby's artwork is very goofy and exaggerated looking, but it's never this bad. I mean, come on. That is just, it's just so gross and unpleasant to look at. So yeah, whether or not Josh Kirby is the one who painted this cover, it's still pretty awful. But again, it has become something I'm very fond of. Just because every time I look at it, it reminds me of all the good times I've had hanging out with my friends and talking about books here on the internet. And now I'm going to put this away because I've talked about bum cider way too much in this video already. So number 10, the first legitimate entry on this list, is a cover by Daryl K. Sweet, whose artwork I really enjoy, and he has a very distinctive art style that you can spot a mile away. And what I really love about Sweet's art style is that he draws the gnarliest looking monsters, especially dragons. And on no cover have I seen a gnarlier looking dragon than on Her Majesty's Wizard by Christopher Stasheff. Just look at this guy. He is all fangs and frills and spikes with those evil-looking eyes. Now, obviously, there is some kind of scene going on in the foreground. We have this woman in a regal-looking dress, I guess, anointing or knighting some guy in normal street clothes. But the image is just dominated by that freaky-looking dragon. I love it so much. So yeah, that's number 10, Her Majesty's Wizard, painted by Daryl K. Sweet. The next one is a painting by Jack Gahn, who I've just mentioned. Now, Jack Gahn gets some crap from some people. Not everyone enjoys his art style. I really like it. I like the vivid colors he uses. I like his simple character work, figure work, I guess you could call it. And some of my favorite Jack Gahn paintings I don't actually have in my collection, except for this one. This is the cover for The Weapon Makers by A.E. Van Vogt. Now, the thing is, I've never read The Weapon Makers, or rather, any of A.E. Van Vogt's material. I probably should at some point. But, so I don't know if this is some kind of science fiction horror story. But the cover makes it seem like it is. It has this great, oppressive, ominous atmosphere. It's a lot darker and moodier than Jack Gahn's usual style. We have that gaunt-looking spaceman fleeing down this weird prismatic plane from this creepy, spidery thing chasing him with all these weird, surreal shapes in the background. It just looks awesome. I love that cover so much. Number 8 is kind of a nostalgia pick, and if you've been around the channel anytime recently, you probably knew I was going to bring up one of these, because it is a cover from the Redwall series by Brian Jakes. Yes, there are 22 books in the Redwall series, and here in America, every single cover was handled by one artist, Troy Howell. There were a bunch of different artists that worked on the Redwall series, especially in its homeland of the UK, but here in America, Troy Howell did all 22 covers, and my favorite of them has to be Marl Fox. I love that portrait of the main villain of this book, Machen the Marl Fox. It's funny that I remember his name. I don't remember the names of any of the other characters. There they are in the back. Those are our heroes. We got some squirrels and some moles there. I don't remember any of them, but I remember Machen the Marl Fox. I think because, he's the first thing you see when you pick this book up. And, I was 11 years old at the time. I was very impressionable. He looks super mysterious with that cloak wrapped around him, that giant battle axe, the weird wilting flowers wreathed around him. It's just an awesome little portrait. Troy Howell did some great work for the Redwall series, and yeah, that has to be my favorite, Marl Fox. Next is a cover by Jim Steranko, who's really more well-known as a comic book artist, but he did quite a few covers for paperbacks, science fiction and fantasy paperbacks. And my favorite has to be his cover for The Mighty Swordsman. This is an anthology of fantasy stories written by numerous famous authors. We have some Conan and some Elric in this, as a matter of fact. And yeah, this is a nice wraparound cover that Jim Steranko did. Super cool looking. It's kind of a collage piece, but I love all the individual images that make up this cover. So we got a castle, we got someone riding on the back of a Pegasus, we got a ship, we got a dancing harem girl, we got this evil looking sorcerer, and then on the front we have this big barbarian with a sword standing in front of a giant snake. We got this Amazon woman with a cool looking winged headdress. And then we got this giant sword rising above it all with a blood red sun behind it. Yeah, this cover kind of symbolizes everything that I look forward to when I read sword and sorcery. So yeah, the Mighty Swordsman by Jim Steranko. It's one of my favorites for sure. For number 6, we're dipping back into science fiction with a painting by Ed Valigursky, who I happen to think is a very underrated science fiction artist. He's probably most well known for doing the Ace edition of City by Clifford D. Simic with that iconic looking robot. The funny thing is that robot is very emblematic of his style. Anytime Ed Valigursky painted a robot, they tended to look more or less like that. It's kind of charming in a way. But my favorite painting of his has to be the cover he did for Crashing Suns by Edmund Hamilton. Now here's the thing. I could talk about how much I love the bright colors and how much I love the atmosphere in this painting, but we're all looking at the exact same thing. We are all paying attention to that goofy little basketball-shaped alien with a tiny little ray gun in his curly Q tentacle. And the funny thing is, I have read the title story for this book, Crashing Suns, and this is an exact scene from that story. It happens exactly as Ed Valigursky paints it. That little alien is exactly how he's described in the story. It's just wonderful. Yeah, this has to be one of my favorite pieces of pulp science fiction art of all time. It's just great. Next, for number 5, I have a piece by Jeff Jones, who also kind of gets a bit of crap from people. People tend to call him a discount Frank Frazetta, and I see where they're coming from, but I don't necessarily agree. I think when he gets away from the more Frazetta-style stuff, his artwork really does shine, and I think it definitely shines in a dark, ominous kind of way on the Centaur Press edition of Solomon Kane by Robert E. Howard. I mean, just look at that. That is a perfect portrait of Solomon Kane. Whenever I think of that character, this is the image that comes to mind. When I picked this book up from a book haul that I got from eBay a little over a year ago, I picked up this book and was just blown away by the artwork. I love how dark and creepy and ferocious Kane looks in this image. He's got that big sword strapped to his side. He looks like he's about to draw it and just cut the viewer down for practicing witchcraft or taking the Lord's name in vain or something. Yeah, it's a great illustration of Solomon Kane. My favorite illustration of Solomon Kane. Jeff Jones just knocked it out of the park with that one. Moving on from discount Frank Frazetta to real Frank Frazetta, we have number 4. Now, I have a bunch of Frank Frazetta covers in my collection, so it was really hard for me to nail down just one. But I eventually decided on one of his covers from the Tarzan series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And even then, this pick might surprise some people because it's not Frank Frazetta's usual dark, gritty style. This is his cover for The Jungle Tales of Tarzan. Now, here's the thing. It's, like I said, it's not his usual style. It's a lot lighter. It's a little more comic booky, I guess super deformed is how you describe it. But I just love this image, mainly because it's nostalgic in a weird kind of way. Before I started reading Tarzan and collecting the original books, to me, Tarzan wasn't a literary figure. Tarzan was a Disney movie. And I know by saying that, all the hardcore Tarzan fanboys are flipping their lids and screaming sacrilege, but it's true. When I was growing up, I loved the Disney version of Tarzan. I loved the Disney Tarzan cartoon that aired on television. I actually watched that religiously as a kid. So Tarzan was always a character that I was familiar with. And so when I see this cover, that's what I think of. I think of those cozy Saturday mornings watching Tarzan on the Disney Channel. Yeah, I know. It's not how real Tarzan fans see the character, but it's how I see the character. And besides, it's a great composition. It has all that drippy ivy and vines. Uh, the whole forest kind of frames Tarzan and that giant ape perfectly as they're about to clash, and they're all situated against that stark, misty white background. I love it. It's just fantastic. Like I said, it's not anyone's normal pick for their favorite Frank Frazetta cover, but it's my favorite Frank Frazetta. And at number 3, Conan finally jumps into the fray. But it's not a Frank Frazetta Conan, no, because I've already used Frank Frazetta. This is my favorite Conan illustration of all time, and it was done by Frazetta's nephew, Ken Kelly. This is his cover for The People of the Black Circle by Robert E. Howard. And I've talked about this cover a few times before. And like I said, it is my favorite Conan illustration. I love how much character is packed into this painting. You have the atmospheric background with that globe and the snakes. Then your eye moves across it to the pile of dead bodies that Conan and this sorcerer are fighting over. And in that part of the image, that clash between Conan and the necromancer, you get what I consider to be the core of sword and sorcery. It's literally sword and sorcery. Conan is about to sink this sword into the flesh of this sorcerer. It is everything that Robert E. Howard's original version of Conan stood for. And in my opinion, Ken Kelly captured that better than any of Frank Frazetta's paintings ever did. I know, again, sacrilege, but that's just how I view it. Yeah, People of the Black Circle by Ken Kelly. One of my favorites, my absolute favorite Conan painting. Coming in at number 2, scraping in just one notch higher than Conan, is his dark counterpart, Elric. And again, if you've been around this channel for any length of time, you probably saw this coming. I've talked numerous times about how much I love this particular painting, and I even made an entire video talking about this particular author's approach to painting the Elric saga. And so, of course, number 2 has to go to my favorite Elric saga painting. This is Stormbringer by Michael Whelan. What more do I have to say? It's everything you want from an Elric image. It's got Elric himself standing out stark and death-like against this chaotic dark background. He's hoisting Stormbringer on high toward the heavens in a heroic pose. There's even a dragon in the background. This image just screams heavy metal fantasy. Literally, it has been used for heavy metal album covers. Yeah, I love it. The thing is, when Saga Press compiled all the Elric Saga novels into hardcovers, they had to use this one for Stormbringer. They couldn't not, because this is what people want. They want Michael Whelan's Stormbringer. If I have any gripes about this image, it's just one, and it is a very tiny gripe. It is that I don't exactly like Michael Whelan's interpretation of Stormbringer, the sword. My favorite interpretation of Stormbringer is actually the one painted by Brom, the famous Dark Sun Dungeons and Dragons illustrator. I think he captures the look of that sword perfectly. But again, that is a tiny little gripe, and it doesn't stand a chance against the rest of this image. It's just pure epicness. I don't even know if epicness is a word, but I'm going to use it. And if there's one cover that I love more than Stormbringer by Michael Whelan, it has to be the cover for J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, painted by Ted Naismith. Ted Naismith is my very favorite Tolkien artist. The thing is, he tends to get overshadowed by the likes of John Howe and Alan Lee, and I love those guys. I think their artwork is fantastic. I mean, they worked on the concept art for the movie. They're good. They're good artists. But in my opinion, Ted Naismith captures the heart of Middle-earth better than any other artist. And I think he does his best on this cover of The Hobbit. Now, again, this is kind of a nostalgia pick. It might be nostalgia speaking. This was one of the first big books that I ever finished as a kid, and I've had this exact copy ever since I was 10 years old. But I just can't choose anything else above it. I love this image of Gandalf meeting Bilbo for the first time in Hobbiton. You got the smoke coming out of the chimney, the lush green grass and the trees. The thing is, if you've read The Lord of the Rings, you know that the main character is Middle-earth itself. Yes, there are the Fellowship and all the other characters, but the world of Middle-earth itself is the main character. And in my opinion, Ted Naismith captures that the best with how he depicts the forests and rivers and mountains and vistas. It's just amazing. He is my very favorite Tolkien artist, and he painted my very favorite Tolkien painting. And yeah, I just can't think of a cover that I love more than this one. So that's it. That's my top 10 favorite covers of all time. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think? How wrong am I, especially when it comes to Frank Frazetta and Ken Kelly? Let me know, and until next time, as always, farewell and keep reading.